America. Yeah. I can't remember any of the words except
Come around again and save the motherfucking day. Yeah. All right.
Okay.
I love that. That's a good way to start.
And with that.
And, well, this is the start. It's the revival. The prepare, you know, the restart of the Music Prophet. And I'm stoked that I get to be here with a return guest, plus a new band, which is more exciting. Not a new band, but, you know.
New to the podcast.
New to the podcast, yeah.
Last time we talked, it was me and Shawn.
Yeah.
And it was just us. So
it was, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm stoked to introduce In Waves. What's up, guys?
Thank you.
Hello.
Happy to be here.
Pleasure to be here.
And to start off, I think introduce yourselves, and this time, what is your favorite color?
Oh, so original.
It's what I do.
Okay, so I'm Tanner Reinhardt. I am lead singer and rhythm guitar for the band In Waves. Yes, main songwriter and one of four now songwriters. We all wrote songs on this new album. Favorite color? I mean, it used to be blue, but I think it's like it's more of like a golden, like almost like a sunflower now.
My name's Justin Ross. I play drums for In Waves. I also do vocals and partake in some of the composing and songwriting with the band. Favorite color's always been red. Yeah.
Red like sunsets, you know?
A dark red, like blood.
Like Spider-Man?
A little bit. Yeah.
Like the new animated Spider-Man. Yeah.
Definitely love Spider-Man too.
All right, my name is Ben Moore. I've been in sort of a professional friendship with these guys for the better part of 20 years. Over the years, I've played music, a lot of time spent in the production role, done a lot of engineering for them, and on this project, I consulted the engineering process. Favorite color is orange.
He's like the fifth Beatle.
Yeah, you can compare me to George Martin anytime you'd like.
Well, and I think that's actually kind of a good starting point, because with this album, when you listen to it, a lot of it is the production. Like, I think that stands out the most. Like, the songwriting is great, but it still continues from your last album. But the production on this album, like with the harmonies and the mix and the way that the guitar will cut in when there isn't vocals, or when there's both a lead guitar and a vocal, they balance out so much. And so I think that's like the fifth Beatle in this situation is kind of huge.
Well, there's actually another Beatle behind the scenes too that I want to shout out, Jason Jones, who he did the mixing and mastering. So he's the sixth Beatle as well. Not that we're Beatles,
no,
or even close, but
Stop comparing yourselves to Beatles.
Yeah.
Maybe the insect.
Maybe. You know, I'm sure, like, yeah, it's just like, you know, the blue beetle.
Yeah.
There's a black beetle.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I like to point out, if you to check the credits on this record, there's actually no production credit. These guys kind of did it on their own. It was sort of like a self-produced deal. We've been working on these techniques and things for actually the entire time. The previous band, Life Blown Open, did really ambitious, dynamic music, and it's been a goal. Especially we're talking about Jay. He's our mix guy. The personal goal of his has been that anything you want to listen to in that record is available sonically. So if you want to listen to the bass guitar, you can hear it. If you want to listen to the drums playing, you can hear it. Switch back and forth and nothing's masked. And that's really sort of the culmination of the better part of our lives working this process. So in order for you to be able to listen to the bass guitar if you want to, or to be able to hear the cymbals or the third background harmony if you want to hear it, then all of these sound sources exist full spectrum on this project. And this is sort of my major input in the process on this particular record. And this is
I don't think we've even mentioned the record yet.
what I want to.
No, actually, that is a good point.
We didn't mention the record.
We have not mentioned our new release.
We're here because of a record.
So, yeah, I hear you guys just released a record.
Yes, we did.
What is it called?
See you in the next life.
I love that. I mean, it's kind of great.
We started talking about Chris Cornell. Not
Yes.
even the popular one.
No. But I think that's, I don't know. Honestly, it kind of fits the record because when you listen to it front to back, it has that theme of reflection and looking back at the past, but also moving forward. And the first song as well is kind of about that. Like you start off with a very like Hans Zimmer-esque,
Yeah.
like parts.
Piano intro.
Yeah. And it's
Yeah.
just kind of, that album thematically is a reflection, but also, I don't know, it almost fits that you didn't even mention that it's for an album.
Yeah. There is a lot of, I mean, future representing the past, and so there is there's a lyric, and actually we named the instrumental song A Mirror Image of the Future, and then there's History Repeats, which is about that cyclical nature of existence, and then
Which has the lyric "A mirror image in the future."
yes, which has that lyric in it, and what's the other one? So there's and then We Got It Easy. We Got It Easy was actually an idea that came from my brother. He says, "Yo man, you got to write a song about our ancestors, bro." So that's what that song. So We Got It Easy is about how in the modern the modern lives that we live, like we do have a lot of things really easy, but then it says, but do we really? Because it's different. It's not easier, it's different. I think that we struggle with existential issues more so than survival. You know what I mean? So and then then you've got that theme coming back again and see you in the next life, as in the next life is part of the cycle. Now, what is the next life? We don't know, but I'll see you there, and we'll find out, right? So yes, and the album does come right back around. Ben was explaining to me how once you finish the album and it starts again, it's like you're launched right back in to echoes of the intervals. Well, echoes are a repetition.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
And the interval being that distance or that time that it takes to repeat. And so you're right back into the beginning of the album, which Mike gave me the theme for that song, which was that he was going through a bit of an existential crisis. And it's just so, you know what I mean? Crazy. I must have lost my mind. I'm lost in the echoes of the intervals. It's like I'm just on repeat. And there's that existential dread that it is thematic, though it was really unintentional. But it just
kind of happened and worked out.
It just emerged. Yeah.
It's funny. There are a lot of themes of the cycle of life.
Yeah.
Even made of, this song is pretty much about giving your energy to nature and it coming back to you.
That's right. Yeah. And he wrote that song completely independent of
the album.
Yeah.
It's not like there are some themes, but it's not like we intentionally wrote
the theme into it.
Yeah.
It was just emerged.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
There are a few that intentionally are thematic. Every song hits, it's like beat by beat by beat. like it's intentional, that it's a pattern.
Right.
But then there's others that it's just by accident. And so it's really cool that you guys did it that way. Almost kind of reminiscent of just, you know, like almost the prog rock, like it actually kind of honestly makes me think of Sleep Token, their album, how each song is sort of its own entity.
Yeah.
But overall, if you listen to it front to back, or like a Tool album front to back, or, you know, Pucifer, because that's still Maynard.
It's good stuff.
Oh yeah, it's brilliant. But it's always thematic. But you feel like you get the sense that it wasn't fully intentional. It just kind of came out that way.
Yeah. And I wonder if those patterns emerge as sort of like it's like a frequency that, you know, like as a group. So as an individual, like I've got my own sort of resonant frequency that I'm kind of riding. But then as a group, you know, and we're making music, and you know, and that's why I love the theme of the band name In Waves, because like that really is like life, and you ride a frequency, and I guess once you get on that frequency, whatever it is that you're creating is gonna be sort of emblematic or symbolic of that frequency, and that's gonna come out in the music and the lyrics, and you know, it all came together so nicely because Jay, when he started mixing the album, he goes, okay, I'm going to mix this like a live album. And he told me, he called Ben, he said, hey, when you engineered this, what did you have in mind? And he says, oh, it's going to be like a live album.
I had been listening to the live album Throwing Copper quite a bit, and it's just a sonic masterpiece. It really is. Everybody in that band kills on that record. The production, the guitar tones are amazing. And as I was doing the pre-production, as I got the early recordings in from these guys, this is what I'd been listening to, and I was loving it. So a lot of my early planning, soundstage planning, talking about sort of frequency stacking and all of that thing was really based on Live's Throwing Copper.
And then we ended up with a live sounding album.
And now this episode made possible by Good Grab.
Like we go way back. Me, Justin, Ben, and Jay go back to, so first album, Life Blown Open. Goodbye Heart. Yeah, that's where we connected. I think we connected through, oddly enough, a guy named Chris Cornell. So wasn't it? So Clayton Drake.
Okay.
Was friends with Chris Cornell, who was friends with Drew
Mulligan. Okay.
Drew Mulligan.
Yep.
But it's just funny because Chris Cornell is my vocal hero. So it's just I love that name is involved.
The other Chris Cornell was in my elementary school class, and we'd play road hockey in front of his house sometimes after piano lessons.
So that Chris, like, so he went to Soundgarden, you went somewhere else, you know, you just went two ways. Not quite.
But
I used to walk over to Arena Gardens, and I slept at Chris Cornell's house at least once.
Hey, well, there you go.
The local Sudbury, Chris Cornell, not the Soundgarden.
Correct. Let's not get confused.
I ended up studying philosophy with this Chris Cornell as well. We were in a lot of classes together.
I wonder what Chris would think about all this attention. I'm
gonna send this to him.
I haven't seen him since 14 years old, maybe.
I run into him in the grocery store every now and then.
That's hilarious.
I'm sure he's
Yeah.
gonna love it. Yeah, especially the fact that like we spent 5 minutes just
Yeah.
mentioning his name.
Shout out to Chris.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah, this one's for you. Here's a whole like 5-minute committed segment of the podcast just you,
to him.
Chris.
Yeah.
Hope you're doing well. Hope you have some kids that you're happy.
He does.
Well, there it is.
He does. Yeah. So, and he's an engineer.
There you go.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
We're just gonna call this the Chris Cornell podcast at this point.
Yeah. But I think that's kind of, I mean, that brings up influences as well,
Yes.
too. That, you know, like listening to the album, you can hear so many different styles, like in a very subtle way. You know, like there is the Chris Cornell vocals, but then there is like some of the harmonies that come in that's from other like subgenres, and there's some like prog influence, but yet there's like Alexis on Fire type influence with some of the guitar and like the Wade and Dallas Green type pairings that happen.
Yeah.
Which could just be me and the music nerd that I am.
It's definitely not. You've touched on quite literally the reason why I work with these guys, why I've stayed working with these guys, why I stopped talking to these guys for 2 years, and I get a call and it's like, hey, we got a project. And I was like, all right, I'm in. And it's because of that music. It's eclectic, it's interesting, it's technical.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's so funny because like you said, like we would, you know, kind of part ways for a little bit. And I remember we tried projects with other recording like engineers and I don't know, man. It's like it's so funny because like these guys, Ben and Jay, like they've been there for me, you know. It's kind of crazy.
It's been a ride.
Yeah, yeah.
So what's that like for you then, Justin? Since you've been like as a drummer, you're a big part of it, and you're kind of, I wouldn't say behind the scenes, but you're such like over time, especially within Waves, you're now a major part of the creation. How's that been for you?
Well, me and Tanner go back quite a while with Life Blown Open, and I think this is kind of like us getting back together, and a lot of familiar elements reoccur, but our songwriting has evolved a little. We're less prog, and after so much time apart, you know, it's just I'm not really in the background. I'm kind of allowed, you know. I speak my mind, and
I'm his singer. He's not my drummer. That's the joke. That's the ongoing joke for years. We used to set his drums up actually at the front of the stage so that people could watch him go.
Yeah.
People loved that.
It would be cool because, you know, it just reminds me of like when you see photos of a band after a show.
Yeah.
There's like one photo of a drummer,
Yeah.
12 of the lead singer,
Yeah.
and like 15 of the guitarists.
Yeah, every time you try and find a picture of the drummer's face, like either the guitar head is in the way,
Yeah, or a mic stand.
I
or,
just say-
I remember seeing a concert from No Doubt one time though, and the drummer was set up at the front of the catwalk.
yeah, I remember seeing
It was
that.
pretty
yeah.
sweet.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, no doubt, man. Like, if someone was to look for it, where would they see your input on the album? Like, is it the sound or the drums, or like how did you influence the album?
Definitely the drum arrangements. Otherwise, you know, and there's obviously some vocal harmonies, and I did bring a song to the album where the guys kind of, you know, we all formed it together, but it was kind of, in a sense, written. But other than that, I mean, it's just small things that happen in the studio. Like, for example, Flee the Throne, halfway through the song, the vocals stop and we go into this like kind of polyrhythmic section. And that was something that, like, I remember in the studio, I was like, guys, give me 5 minutes. Let me figure this out. I have something. And I remember everyone's kind of like, okay, like kind of annoyed. But we eventually found that, you know, that polyrhythm section. And that's something you wouldn't kind of see if you're listening to the album. Like, you know, we all write in a room together. We all have input.
Yeah, I was
hard
gonna
to tell.
say he's involved in the structure, like the composition. So maybe I'll come to the table with the chords and lyrics, or Shawn will come with something, and we all add our own parts. Like, the Mike will write his bass part, Shawn will write his leads, Justin will write his drums, but then it really is like a group effort, like putting it all together, like
how do we start the song? How do we finish it?
Yeah.
What's the bridge gonna be?
Yeah, and are we gonna repeat certain parts? Are we gonna take certain parts out? So yeah, we're all very involved in that, and in that way, like when it came to like talking about royalties, for example, like
right.
Not that we're making,
and all the millions that album's gonna make on Spotify.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, who knows? You never know, right? So, but when we were coming to royalties, we just decided, 25% each. Let's just do an even share. Even for songs where it's like Mike wrote echoes of the intervals, the piano part, I wrote the vocals. When I was putting it in SoCan, 25, 25, 25, 25,
I think that's a good way to do it when you're kind of at a lower level. It eliminates animosity, and you just know that everyone's kind of part of it. We're
in it together. If one of us wins, we're all winning. That's the way we see it.
All right, and camera break.
And shout out to Good Grab for making this episode possible.
Hey, flavor fanatics. The Good Grab experience is like a smooth, laid-back guitar solo for your taste buds.
Harmony is cool, but sometimes you need a drum solo to spice things up. Good Grab meals are like a drum solo. A bit wild, a bit unexpected, but always a good time.
Good Grab is like a band playing in your mouth. Each bite, a note in a tasty symphony.
All right. Maybe we can agree that Good Grab is the ultimate food festival where every flavor is a headliner. Whether you're into the chill vibes or the wild beats, we've got something for everybody.
Exactly. Good Grab, where flavor meets fun, and every bite is a backstage pass to the tastiest show in town.
Ooh, yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, we actually, I remember having a discussion early on, because I have, Tanner Reinhardt acoustic album, solo album, I Begin in the Y, which I loved. I released it right at the beginning of the pandemic, so
it was a great album. Yeah,
thanks,
man.
The
songwriting on that one was great,
dude. I'm so proud of that album, and I wish that I could have done more with it. So it's this band kind of started off. I was like, hey, do you guys want to get together and play these songs with me? And there was nowhere to play songs because everything was shut down. And then it got to a point where it was like, okay, what are we gonna do now? We've learned these songs. And everybody else in the band is kind of like, well, like I want my creative input. This is where I come to express myself. So we had this conversation early on that it was like, okay, this is team, this is collaborative, and everyone's getting their input, and it's getting better and better. Honestly, like the first album, I'm like, you could see that we were you could hear that we were trying to kind of find our footing. This album, I'm like, okay, we are getting pretty definitive on who we are. And the next album is going to be, I know the next album is going to be amazing, and I'm looking forward to it.
The engineering for this album, like I know that you put a lot of time in, Ben, to make that.
There was a lot of planning. Again, getting back just to the amount of time that we've spent together. These guys have learned most of this process on their own. And so in this particular case, it was essentially hardcore engineering. So I was in control of the math, the science, the theoretical physics, and then kind of bringing that to a place where these guys could use their knowledge, their abilities, and all of their creative input and make their record. So it's, I had no input on the writing. I had no input on any of the recording process, frankly. I simply got them from where they're at to where it needed to be. And that's reflective of my last 10 years in study. I mean, I brought this guy with me. So this is my Bible.
Ben's my go-to for engineering questions.
I mean,
and I
look
love
at that Bible.
Yeah,
It's
This is fantastic. It's a bit of a joke, and I didn't get the joke for at least 10 or 15 years. But it's called the Handbook for Sound Engineers. And you know a handbook's typically quite small. This thing's about 2.5 inches thick, and you can see it's got rather small writing. Lots of lovely diagrams in here. I've read most of it.
I believe that.
But
It is,
turns out it's literally a handbook. So everything in here just scratches the surface. Vague details. Like you need to pull a textbook. You need an article. I had to take some courses to get through this stuff. And
and it fits in the palm of your hand.
Yeah.
I can hold it in one hand. So there's that.
Yeah.
But that is, and I think actually, you know, so when Tanner told me that you were that you want to be part of the podcast too, that intrigued me as well.
Right.
Because sound engineering is something where you don't hear much about it. You know, it's kind of like when you see a movie come out and they're talking to directors and actors, but it's like, wait, what about the person behind the camera that actually like knew how to get those right angles? In the music world, the sound engineer
Is the equivalent.
yeah, it's
Absolutely.
like it's the hero behind the scenes that was able to pull off some just insane stuff sound wise.
And essentially, it's just one big math equation. So recording music has absolutely nothing to do with music whatsoever. We're just doing math, and so you're either adding or subtracting powers and voltages to go from reasonably simple waveforms into a more complicated waveform that we can then sort of reproduce through speakers, and you got two of them doing different things, and then those sound pressures re-add in physical space, and your brain decodes it, and all of this stuff. And
Yeah, it's
Quite simple.
This is why everybody talks about it all the time, you know?
it's fascinating from my perspective because like I'm not a math guy, right? But like I really enjoy watching Ben place microphones and listening in the headphones and just hearing things slot in. And you really do hear it, and you hear the image appear in your mind. And it's honestly it's a fascinating thing that I think a lot of people don't ever get to experience.
Well, so do you want to talk about that, Ben?
A little
like
bit.
You don't have to get into, you know, the Pythagorean theorem equation side of it.
Yeah.
But I don't know, just kind of
Everybody loves summing squares, and we rarely use Pythagoras.
It's true. But just kind of expand on that a little bit. Like, is it the science between proximity of people or how the sound waves bounce? Like, what is the general...
Oh, man. All of that and more. The real crux of the issue is that we need to take... Well, I mean, you take an idea out of these guys' heads, and then eventually we need to get it through a speaker and into your head. But in between that, there's a lot of stuff going on, and so we need to excite the airspace and kind of get all of this happening. And, you know, we've got things like room modes to deal with and some resonances and that kind of thing. Then there's the transduction process.
What's a room mode?
A room mode. Would you like to borrow my book?
Have I told you about my book?
I love my book.
It's only a handbook, sir.
It's only a handbook. Essentially, it's the room will create standing waves. So if we put enough energy into this room, it's going to absorb it in the airspace. And so there'll be places in the room where a particular frequency simply won't exist. So like from that wall to that wall, from that wall to that wall has a physical distance. That physical distance lines up with some frequency. This wall to this wall has one, ceiling to the floor has one. And so when we energize the room absorbs those frequencies, and they're not available in those places. They just don't exist. And then when the energy goes away, the room releases those back. And so you end up with these sort of bumps of energy in your reverb field. And like in really bad room, like in a cube or in a cylinder, all of these things add on top of each other, and then we get like this horrible harmonic series type thing. End of the day, everything gets muddy, and your sound clips because you keep trying to make everything louder, but you can't just put everything louder. And so that's where we get into subtracting signals with microphones instead of just adding, if that makes sense.
No, yeah, that does, yeah. And it kind of explains the math side of things too. Yeah, I was also kind of wondering what a room mode was.
Yeah,
it's fantastic.
You got to speak to us like you're speaking to kindergarten children here.
I kind of have I kind of have figured out my way of understanding this sort of stuff too, which is, it's not mathematical, but because I'm just an abstract thinker, and I kind of I picture it like if you had all of your frequencies stacked up in a graph.
Precisely.
Right? You have to make room. If you want your bass, if your bass is moving beyond its range, it's going to move into the field of, let's say your rhythm guitar is going to sit above that. And then if you don't make room above that for your vocals, and then above that for your lead guitar, and then your cymbals and all that, you have to, you're gonna get that muddy sound that you were saying.
100%.
So everything has to have its own area, its own living space.
It's a raucous rock and roll record.
It's there's a lot of emotion in it. I don't mind the imperfections.
I didn't notice anything wrong with the drumming personally.
Yeah, but it's kind of like me kind of.
Yeah, you nitpick
so hard
at
on
yourself.
myself,
Yeah, I know. There's a slide and Give It a Go that I'm obsessed with.
A slide.
One little.
Oh, that you just could have done better.
I could have done it better, and I don't think anyone else will ever notice. And every time I listen, I'm like, ouch.
I have to say the thing on this project that I'm really loving, it hasn't really happened since the Industry release, is that I had almost nothing to do with the record. So I'd heard the pre-production. I came in, I dropped the early microphones just to set up this sort of thing that we're doing, get it into their wheelhouse, where now you can talk about,
use the springboard,
0 dB and red lights and green lights, and how loud do I want this, and what tone or what timbre.
That was actually very helpful, I think.
Oh yeah.
Everything else, I think we really used that knowledge to set up all the other mics.
Yeah, it was the springboard. It was the launch pad.
But that's why I'm credited as a consultant.
Yeah.
I think just as a way to wrap it up then, I think for each of you, it'd be fun I don't know, what's your highlight of recording?
This album took us a year. We did it pretty much ourselves. It took pretty close to a year. And it was definitely during a time for me that was, big changes in life. And this really was an anchor for me to keep my sanity. So it's not a moment, it's the process itself just came at a time for me that it was just, I don't know, meant to be. I don't know. Loved it. I loved it.
It's so funny because that's exactly what I was going to say. We didn't talk about this beforehand, but I was going to say this whole process was transformative and just in such a subtle but significant way, because this was the first time that we were really in control of what was happening.
Many hours behind the computer.
Oh yeah, first time I got to engineer the See You in the Next Life song. That's the first time I've ever done that. I got to experiment a little bit. And it came out sounding really cool. It's the first time that I've done sound editing and post-production. I was involved with a little bit of how the final product was going to sound in terms of, sitting in front of the computer and then, the hours and hours just here. A lot of it was just Justin and I. I spent a lot of time just Shawn and I here. And then Mike was kind of doing his own thing a lot of the time. He's just kind of at home. And
he's the bass player.
Yeah. But it was a grind, man. It was like hours and hours. And
it's a couple hours every night, you know. We're coming a couple days a week as much as we can.
Oh yeah. And I'm like I would come back from like I'd go visit my fiance in Brooks Falls, and I would drive back on a Sunday 2.5 hours, and I'd come straight to the studio and work until I couldn't focus anymore. Go home, go to work, same thing the next day, and you know, as much time as I could spend doing this was as much time as I did. And then to have guys like Ben and Jay on our team to be able to go, okay, I trust you with this. Have at it, man. And to give that over to Jay, and then for him, because I love these guys. Honestly, like, I don't know if I've told you this, but I love Jay and Ben. Like, they're like two of my top 10 people. They're so passionate about music and audio, and I'm an audiophile. Like, I'm obsessed with sound, and so to learn from them, to have this relationship and this trust with them, like, I would have loved to have Jay here today too, but
Jay would have hated it.
He would have hated being here. So, but
I heard,
yeah, but to be able to put a year's, you know, not quite a year of work, but like, you know, like
it was
10 and a half, 11 months.
3 years of work.
And to be like, okay, Jay, there you go. Have fun and have that trust. And then to have it come back and be like, this isn't at all what I expected, but this is awesome. And now, you know what I mean? And to have that separation from it and to be able to listen to it myself now and just get fired up, man. Like, I get fired up listening to this album, you know, like, and that hasn't really happened to me all that much. It like some of our projects in the past took years before I could listen to it and be like, heck yeah.
Well, and you've made you've had a lot of albums.
Yes.
Like Clean Life, Blown Open.
And my solo and Strider the Wolfhound out in Calgary. So yeah, it's saying something, man. And you know, it's like I've never had that like feeling in my bones before where I was like, this is good. And I know that anyone who hears this is going to be like, yeah, you guys did it. So, you know, that's a good feeling.
Yeah. And you, Ben?
You know, it was like 17, 18, 19 years ago, something like that. These guys come up and they're like, okay, we want to make a record and we want it to sound like this and it's going to be like this and it's ruckus and it's a rock and roll band and we got like all the solos and there's crazy drums, we got harmonies and everybody's doing their own thing and this is all going to go together. And it was like, man, wow. And we did Good by Heart, and Good by Heart was intense. That was probably almost a year-long project. I mean,
that was fun.
I remember going with Jay, our mix guy, to Walmart in the bedding section. We get some foam, and we'd go to my parents' place, an old linen closet. We stapled it on. We called it the vocal booth from hell.
Yeah.
I mean, back then we thought that you'd take the light on the condenser mic and you'd point it in the singer's eyes, and okay, like you're blind, now you see, because that's where the mic goes. It was insane.
Oh yeah, and I couldn't even stand up in that closet.
I had the saxophonist and the cellist crying, and it was a
honestly
disaster.
one of my favorite.
Okay, so back. Excuse me.
That cello was awesome, though.
Yeah, dude.
And
awesome.
the saxophone,
killer. Loved it. Loved it. You know, I ground these kids hard. I was a kid too, but. So just getting back to it though, right? So 17, 18, 19 years later, right? A week before my 40th birthday, this album drops. And I hadn't heard anything since sitting in this room about 8 months prior. And so they gave me the record that they asked me to make them for my 40th birthday.
Yeah,
that is amazing.
That is amazing.
And they did it mostly without me too. So I took my last 10 years of research. I came in, I dropped it in about 3 hours. They took everything that they've learned over the past 20 years and they made something. You know, it's not produced art. It's not my record. It's their record. It's how they wanted it to sound, and it's it's really cool, and that's really rewarding for me that. You know, they went home, they practiced, they learned, they got better. They went to other cities. You know, we ended up doing a record. They won a battle of the bands. They called me up out of nowhere, and we went down in 18-hour sessions in Toronto recording stuff.
What a grind that was, man.
Yeah, that was And so
Yeah.
here we are, and this is the first record that it sounds like a freaking record.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect way to end it too.
Yeah.
Like it's just
Happy 40th.
yeah, man. Happy 40th.
Thank you guys. Love it. Love it.
You get the record and you get to go on a podcast.
Pretty sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah. So on that note, yeah, I don't know. On the count of 3, why not? If you guys want to say the band name and then
And where to find us?
yeah.
1, 2, 3. In waves. All right, great job, guys.
Beautiful.
Round of applause.
And so we've got inwaves.ca. We're now on Spotify, iTunes. I'm still working out Deezer. I'm trying to talk to their customer support. We're on YouTube for anybody who doesn't want to pay for a streaming platform, and then on Bandcamp. Actually, we've
I
got
heard you're on Apple Music as well.
yes, we are. Yeah.
Okay.
Bandcamp. I actually want people to go to Bandcamp because then they can buy our album. And for those of you who don't know, music is very expensive to make.
So buy their album.
So buy the album. It would be very greatly appreciated because
Or find these guys live and go out to a show, buy some drinks, have a party, bring your friends, have a nice day.
Right? Especially when it's only like what, a $10 or $15 cover sometimes for a show. Like that's not
Yeah.
a lot. It's not a lot.
really
to ask.
not that bad. There's people charging $400 a ticket. You know what I mean? So $10, $15.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody in the bar was dancing. The freaking bartender was watching when they dropped this record. So it was a good show. Get out and see these guys live.
And perfect. Well, thanks for coming on, guys. And yeah, I'm stoked to just keep this going. Yeah.
Nice.
So, and thanks for listening and watching. If
Yeah.
if you're watching on YouTube, which you probably most likely are, yeah, and just keep an eye out for more podcasts by moi, Kyle Vine. If
The
you
Music
don't see
Prophet.
that. Yeah, the Music Prophet podcast.
Nice.